you. My name is Mary Johnson. We're going to get started here. Do we have anyone here for the first time? No one here for the first time. Okay, we'll have people coming in. They'll be coming in and out. We'd like to start with a prayer. Do we have anybody give us a prayer today? Oh, Rocket, absolutely. Okay.
Bow our heads. Gracious and merciful Father, we come before you. We give you thanks. We give you thanks for this forum that you've created. The opportunity, Lord, for us to share with our communities insight, perspectives. We thank you for all voices that are spoken here today. Father God, we thank you for those, Lord, that work behind the scenes so this could be successful. Lord, we also want to thank you for how you continue to pour into each and every one of the souls that are here today. And we give you thanks for that. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. We are very pleased today to have school board candidates from District 1 and District 6. District 1 and District 6. And let me just take a moment. If you have a cell phone, please silence your cell phone right now. Okay? Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to give them each a chance to introduce themselves, and you're going to have maybe 2 minutes each, and then we're going to have questions from the audience, and we have Ms. Nathalie over here, who's our timekeeper, and she will, yes, she'll keep the time. We're going to give you, we have, let's see, 5 people here, so we're going to give you each maybe 90 seconds to answer a question, okay? And then you all have 30 seconds to ask your question. And Nathalie is going to keep the time for us. Okay, so I'm going to start with Ms. Melissa. Sure. Oh, yep. Okay, we're going to have to share microphone. Yeah, that's three. Share that one and you two share this.
You didn't introduce the facilitators.
Oh, okay.
Testing.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm Mary Johnson. I'm sorry. We have Steve over there who does our video and our website and everything. We have Mr. Thomas Moore, who's our musician. We have Shay Abdullah, who helps with technology also. We have Miss Jackie Edwards. She's a convener. We have Laura McCletty. She's a convener. We have Winston Robinson. He's a facilitator. Good morning, Mr. Gary. Okay. So now, I think I've introduced everybody. You may begin.
Thank you. I've got my notes with me because otherwise they start to ramble. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Melissa Easley, and I had the honor of the last 3 years of serving as your District 1 representative. Before joining the board, I spent 10 years in CMS. This is my 19th year as an educator. And that has shaped every decision that I have made. I know firsthand what students need. I have had board experience, I have had education experience, and so bringing those two together has been an incredible experience, and I've been able to make connections to things that I have not been able to make before. I've turned that experience into action. I've worked to protect teacher planning time, strengthen safety in schools, and make sure that there is transparency in our resources and that every dollar is spent to schools that actually benefit all students. I believe in public schools. I live public schools. I'm a 20-year public school advocate. My 2 children are in CMS. And I am not into business interests. I am not into corporate interests, and that is why I have continued to do the work that I do. I stand on what our students, our teachers, and our families. I was the first school board member to start a regular newsletter, Chalk Talk, which anyone can join, and it breaks down what we do as a school board and what we do, and what our decisions do and the effect that those decisions will make. I'm running in the race again because students and teachers need a proven leadership that will sit there and work in their corner and fight for them, both on the local level and on Raleigh. because our teachers are the ones being underrepresented and not being represented as a profession. And that is something you need. You need to be able to connect the policy making with the education and show how the policies make a difference in our schools and in our classrooms. So thank you. I look forward to having your support. Good morning. Good morning. I am Charlita from Charlotte, and I am not just from here, I am for here. My mama went to West Charlotte, my daddy went to West Met, I went to Vance, which is Julius Chambers. I met my husband in the 10th grade there. We got engaged at Ridge Road, and I have a 3rd grader at Highland Creek. So when I say I'm not just from here and I'm for here, I really mean that. I am a first-generation college student, and I know the impact that CMS can have on students because it had it with me. My guidance counselor, one of them is in the room, and her and another guidance counselor introduced me to HBCUs, where I went to Hampton University under their direction. I have spent 20 years doing technology consulting for many global companies. I've learned that experience to the city of Charlotte, where I'm off today, as the Chief Data and Analytics Officer, where I'm responsible not just for our business intelligence, but our artificial intelligence strategy. And I think every board needs someone that can bring that critical thought leadership as we navigate responsibly and ethically with our AI usage, and how we can use it to complement the work that we're doing in our classrooms and the way that our students learn. I'm currently a doctoral candidate at UNC Charlotte, where I plan to defend my dissertation the day before election day, so that when I win, they can announce me as Dr. Charlita Hatch. I am studying family engagement and why mothers are not putting their children in CMS, and I've been doing that work for 5 years. And I think that voice is critical to have on the board when we're talking about the state of public education and the dismantling that's happening before us. We need to make sure that we're reclaiming and recruiting families to CMS to regain the strength in our public school system. I look forward to sharing with you more about my background, and remember, Charlita from Charlotte.
Thank you. Well, good morning. I'm Bill Fountain. I'm a Christian, husband, father, grandfather, and a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, also a retired business manager, and a retired school teacher. And why am I here is that for too long, I think CMS has pushed social and political agendas ahead of academic excellence. And that's leaving about 2/3 of the students not meeting the state standard for the state standard. And one of the things I think also it does, it is undermining the values, the family values that we teach at home. It is tolerating code of student conduct violations. And in some cases, it is steering children toward a victimhood mindset. So I think it's time to focus on something that really works. And that's better behavior in the classroom, because like I said, I used to be a teacher for about 10 years. And also, it's also to think about talking about character development. That means character, that means like integrity, resilience. And I think that is a contagious thing that will motivate children. And of course, we got to focus on our reading, writing, and math, and not some ideological agenda. I have the leadership, teamwork, and in the classroom experience to be an effective change agent within our school system, to be able to prepare children for success, to promote school choice, empower parents, and very importantly, is to maintain traditional values in the classroom. I seek your support and encourage you to vote for me, for Bill Fountain. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I think Charlene started a trend, so I'm going to stand up as well. My name is Justin Sheely. I'm a husband, a father, and a soon-to-be foster parent here in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. I am also a family law attorney specializing in high conflict custody and DSS child abuse and neglect cases. So as a candidate, I'm focused on two priorities for the sake of time today. First being that of school safety. I believe that every parent should feel confident and secure in sending their child to Charlotte Mecklenburg schools, that they're going to return home safely at the end of the day. I live in District 6, where Palisades High School experienced a gun incident just prior to the start of school. That's concerning. That impacted a lot of constituents in my district. They were concerned about that. And I believe that we can improve school safety by focusing on proactive measures to increase this safety and security of our schools. We can increase communication between our parents and the school district in the event of an emergency at our schools. And we can focus on making sure that our teachers have the resources that they need to secure the classroom in the event of a threat. Secondly, I want to focus on fiscal transparency. Our school district has a roughly $2 billion budget. Our taxpayers deserve to know where that money is being spent and to ensure that that money is being spent on student-focused outcomes. And finally, again, I touched on it, that I am a child custody attorney. So every decision that I make as a child custody attorney is focused on the best interest of the child standard. And as a board member, I will use that same standard of care in my decision-making on the board. If it's not in the best interest of our children, for students in our Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system, I will not vote for it. As an attorney, I also am beholden to a conflict of interest. In the event that there's a conflict of interest, I can't take a case. And so as a student school board member, I am not beholden to any outside interest or special interest or any political connections that would impact my ability to make decisions that are in the best interest of our children. And so I'm only accountable to the voters and the families and the students of District 6. And I thank you for having me here today, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
All right, I'll follow suit and stand up. So good morning, everyone. I am Anna London, and I'm a candidate for the school board for District 6. I am a proud product of this community. I'm also a proud product of public schools. And I started my career in education, so I was a pre-K teacher for a few years while I was finishing a master's degree in counseling. I did crisis intervention and behavioral health with students that were enrolled in CMS. So I worked with youth ages 7 to 24 years old. And for the last decade, I have strengthened this community through education and workforce development. So I know firsthand what strong public schools can do for a community, for a child, for a family. And I'm standing on 3 priorities. So the first one being making sure that every single student is prepared for life after graduation. When I say that, I mean true college and career readiness. So making sure that not just in words, but in true achievement, that students are ready for college, career, and or military. Making sure that we are nurturing a safe environment for our educators and staff and for our students, and that parents feel like they are a partner in their students' education. And then our public schools are under attack. We are currently experiencing a crisis and an attack on public education. And so I believe in standing up, fighting for public education, fighting for fully funded public schools, making sure that our public funding is going toward public education, and supporting our teachers, our educators, and fighting for higher pay. So I bring to this seat, this candidacy, and to this role, lived experience and leadership experience. I bring governance experience. I report to a board of directors. I know how to manage a board of directors. I manage large contracts currently, all things governance of public dollars. So again, Anna London, I really would appreciate your support.
Thank you for your time. Gary Young. Justin, you alluded to the gun incident that occurred at Palisades, which, if I'm not mistaken, happened not within school hours, etc. As a board member, how would you control or regulate households' utilization of the Second Amendment? I mean, essentially.
This microphone's not working.
No, we need it. We need it. Give it to me. We need it. We have a streaming audience. It depends on the audio. It's not working, so it's
So if I understand your question correctly, it's how the Second Amendment would apply to.
Well, no, you alluded to the fact that you would regulate that, or you would do better to control it.
On the mic here. On the mic here.
You alluded to the fact that you would do better to regulate or control gun violence, things
Oh,
like
no,
that.
I believe that we need to make sure our schools are safe. As a board member, we have no control over regulation of the Second Amendment. That's a federal constitutional right. However, I do believe that we have control over the safety of our schools. And things that I would put into place, if they're not already in place, are single point of entry for our schools. Making sure that visitors, guests to the school can only enter through one entrance, and that they have to be screened in by the front desk before they can enter the schools. I believe most of our schools already have metal detectors. Some of our schools have student resource officers. I think that every school should have a student resource officer present at the school that can protect our students. But I can't control the regulation of this estimate.
Are the other candidates able to answer?
I was just curious because he alluded to that particular incident, so I was curious about how he would control the incident that was not within the school hours.
I'm actually happy to answer that. We do an amazing job with our relationships with our law enforcement officer. And remember, CMS has their own PD, so building those relationships is number one, so that we can have communication and find out if our law enforcement officers have found a weakness or things like that. The other thing that we can do is promote gun sense storage and safety, so that parents know how to store their weapons so that it's not willingly accessible to children, and making sure that they have the resources that they know for gun safety at home. And so that, as a school board member, that's what we can go out in the community and do. But you're right, we cannot control the Second Amendment rights, we cannot control what's in people's homes, but what we can do is give information to people so that they can exercise their right respectfully and safely for everybody.
All right, I have the next question. Let's have a discussion on ideas. Whatever is the pressing issue, the priority of your campaign that convinced you to run, how would you fix it if you came with the guaranteed support of all of your fellow board members?
I can go. So I alluded to this earlier in my introduction. So I have been studying why mothers are not choosing CMS. And I think that is really critical for us to understand when we see what's happening across the country with public education, with school choice, with vouchers, and what's happening with our public dollars, and who benefits from our students not having a high quality public education. And so one of the ideas that I would bring forward is that we go on a extensive recruitment campaign targeting families that are not in CMS. I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there around our system. I think that parents do not know all of the benefits that CMS offers. I've talked to parents who said, well, my child has a learning difference, and that's why I have to put them in a charter school. I'm like, you do understand that the charter school doesn't have to accommodate your child, but CMS does. And they have over 150,000 students, and they have resources to support. And so I think if we would get outside of talking to ourselves and really start to come up with a campaign strategy that brings the community to our schools, I think we would strengthen it and have a lot more resources and social capital to be able to continue to help build and strengthen CMS.
If I may, I'd like to pick up on your question here, is that I don't know if many of y'all remember studying in college about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And one of the essential things that he said was that you gotta have safety, and you gotta have belonging, and you have to have self-respect of your other people. So if you don't have that as a child coming into the classroom, you're gonna be, you may just decide that, hey, I'm just gonna be absent, I'm not gonna attend. So those are very important things that we have to have in our schools, in our public schools. And that's the reason I think I know that people are moving away from the CMS, because I've been knocking on some doors, and they're telling me it's because several things, but one of them is the safety and the undermining of the values that they hold in their home. So how do we change this? The way I see it is that if you start building character, that's one of the important things. If you start talking about what I said, resilience, and those are type of things that I think will be able to motivate our children, because it brings values back into the child. And if you got to have a safe system, and if you have all the children that start thinking about caring about each other rather than about themselves, I think that's going to be able to, it'll be contagious, I think, within those school system, and hopefully be able to reduce some of the safety concerns that children have. and their parents have. Thank you.
So I alluded to trust and making sure the parents feel like they are a partner in their student or their child's education. And so I would say, you know, when I was growing up, the community believed in and trusted the school system. And so I believe in building back trust and building back a partnership with the community, with parents, so that they do feel like a partner. And I think that comes from more clear and consistent and transparent communication. One of the opportunities that the school board and Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools currently has is really bridging the gap between board communications and the district communication. And so I think, you know, with the support of fellow board members, creating a very clear protocol, clear and consistent protocol and process for communicating out into the community, so that from the board level and the district level, the message is the same and it's consistent and parents are receiving information quickly, timely, and in a transparent manner. I also think that we could do a better job of engaging parents. Parents receive information differently. Different parents may be experiencing different things. They have a different capacity for participating in their students' education. And so I think that we could survey parents and ask, you know, how would you like to be communicated with? I know there's a lot of different platforms for communicating with parents, but I think that we could survey the parents and ask, how is it that CMS could better engage with you? And how could you, what would make it better for you to be able to receive and participate in your students' education?
Did I ask something? Talking about the parent engagement, you're exactly right. But I know that when I was a teacher within CMS, one of the things that was a very frustrating thing to me was that I would, if I had a student that was struggling, which I had students that were struggling, and I had tried to get contact with the parent because I wanted the parent to understand what was going on in the classroom. But oftentimes I go down to the office to find out what the telephone number is, to try to call them, and it would be a number that was not even existing. So I don't know how we got, you're exactly right about getting in contact with the parents, but at the same time, the schools, at the school that I was teaching at, I did not have good numbers to be able to get a hold of those students. Thank you.
I'll take that.
The mic was side.
Is this one working? Yeah, okay. Well, this is something that is very, very important to me because as a school board member, my entire job is to represent the vision and values of the community. And I can't do that if I don't know what the community needs. So some of the things that I have been doing to do that since I started on the board, in fact, I launched my newsletter December of 2022, Chalk Talk. And the intent was to bring the knowledge that I have as a teacher who has been an advocate in the district and understands how CMS works and understand how the state works for education, and explain that to parents in terms that bring them to their understanding so that they can come up with us and so they can help advocate for us on the state level, because teachers have been doing this for a decade and we're being tuned out. And so now we really need the public to get behind us. Well, we can't expect you to get behind us if you don't understand what the piece is. So not only have I launched my Chalk Talk, but every month I have a minute with Melissa. And that is, I go somewhere in District 1. Usually it's a mom and pop local place because I'm a big local, supporting local. And I sit there for an hour to 2 hours. And I invite the public to come with me. And I invite the public to meet me there and support our local business and talk to me about CMS and ask questions. I have sat there for an hour and helped parents fill out applications. I have explained how our state test scores are based off of proficiency at 80% and growth at 20%, and how that's not fair to our students that work really, really hard and our teachers. I have explained what our votes mean for the students and how that impacts not only District 1, but the district as a whole. And so I have continued to reach out to parents and hold spaces specifically for parents to bring them into the fold and to bring them into CMS and help advocate. Thank you.
One thing I would like to challenge is around kind of the family engagement strategies and the models that we employ. I think that We know that parents, regardless of socioeconomic status or race, have a vested interest in their child's learning and education. And so if the information is not correct, I would say the onus would be on that classroom teacher and how they start the relationships with that parent at the beginning of the school year to make sure that they have the most up-to-date information, that they're asking parents how they want to receive information, and that they're establishing that relationship not just when there's a need, but ongoing, so that we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and with our parents. I think we need to redefine what family engagement looks like, because right now we're saying that it's one way. And so if I don't see you in the school walls, then it doesn't count. But does it count if a parent is making sure their kids are reading? Does it count if it makes sure that the parents are helping their kids with their homework and getting the school kids on time? Are there things that the parents can do to support the schools that are not within the school walls? So I think we've got to get really innovative to meet all the different families where they are, because we know the research says that engaged families have stronger student outcomes. So what is our role as a school board and as a system to make sure that it is easy to engage with CMS?
Okay, Rod.
Good morning, Rodney Collins. My question to the panel is, how do you plan to address disparities in academic achievement?
I'll go.
I'll start. Well, we're doing that. We're doing an incredible job at that. If you have seen our numbers, we are one of the top 10 districts in the state. Do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. But we have the biggest achievement gap closure that we've ever had in CMS this year. And I attribute that to two things. The first thing I attribute to is the board. The 9 of us, we all have different opinions. We all have different ways of getting to that goal. But all 9 of us have made a commitment to that goal, being students and teachers and our school district and our parents and our communities. And no matter what path we disagree on, and no matter how we disagree on which way it should be done, we all disagree that that is the goal. And so we, I call ourselves a family. We may have arguments in the back end, but in the front, we are a united front. And we are putting students in school. And we did that this time by setting Herculean goals for our superintendent. Remember, the school board sets the what. The superintendent sets the how. So we set the what, the goals, the guardrails, what we want our students to be able to know and do when they come out of whatever grade level, whether it's 5th grade, 6th grade, 12th grade, whatever that is, right? And I have put so much love and faith into our board that I can't wait to see what we do next year, because we have done so much this year. The second thing I attribute that to is Dr. Hill and giving structure to our school district that we have not had in a long time. And so, yes, thank you, sorry.
Thank you for that question. So when we think about the disparities, I think the first thing we have to do is be honest. So we can talk about the historic gains, which I think is to be applauded, but now we need to double click on that and really look at by demographics, by socioeconomic status, by district, how are schools performance. We have F schools. Why do we have F schools? What are the root causes for those things? And really start to dig into how do we make sure that we're raising the bar for all and not just for some, or not just saying across the district. Because when we do that, we don't actually name the students that we're talking about. We're not naming the demographics that we're talking about. We're leaving folks behind. And when we're leaving folks behind, we're leaving our community behind. And so as a leader, you think about how do you get to the outcome and the goal? Do you want to bring the community with you, even if it takes you a little bit longer to get there, or do you want to leave folks behind? And so the first thing I would do as a board member is to really get down into the data and the details to understand, why are we leaving some of our students behind? Is it because of teacher shortages? Is it because we need additional resources? Is it because of Maslow's hierarchies and needs that have not been met? What are some of the things and supports that we need to do? The last thing I would offer is, we know literacy is the undercurrent for everything. So we have to be bullish on making sure at K through 2 that our students understand phonics, they understand comprehension, and they understand how they can read and comprehend, so that when they get to 3rd grade and beyond, when those building blocks are critical, that they have the skills that they need, and we do not waver or compromise on that.
just touch on one thing. And I agree with everything they said, that the school board has made tremendous progress in improving academic performance. I think we can all agree there's more work to be done, but they are headed in the right direction. But one of the topics that hasn't been addressed today yet is chronic absenteeism. And Dr. Hill touched on this in the August Board of Education meeting, that while we have made strides, the things that's lagging behind is the fact that children aren't in the classroom. And so that is a socioeconomic issue where parents may be working 2 and 3 jobs and they're not able to get the kid to school. And so we need to address that at the root cause and figure out why the children aren't in class, how we can better support our children to make sure that they attend class. And in return, I think we'll see an increase in our academic performance.
But in the pick up on the idea of what you mentioned about fairness, one of the things I think is unfair, even though I think some of the attention is drawn toward fairness, is the social promotions. And I've talked to some of the teachers and parents and found out that they have to push a student through because of considered a way of being fairness. But really, in actual fact, it is not fair to that child to move ahead in something. I used to teach math, and if someone was struggling, let's say on fractions, or on how to do something without an equation, something like that, I was talking algebra, let's say, I couldn't in good conscience send them to the next grade up, because I know they would struggle there. And people are telling me today, teachers in the lower grades, that they're being moved ahead even though they're struggling with reading or they're struggling with math or something like that, and that's not fair to that child. And even after y'all probably all heard about Arthur Griffin, saying about the number of students that were graduated in 2024 and were, I think it was 2,100, somewhere around 2,100 out of 2,700 students that were graduated had a less than a 2.0 grade point average. And that way, how are they going to be able to get good jobs with something like that? So fairness things that we really want to make sure that students are competent before they move to the next grade. Thank you.
So I do want to start by applauding our current school board and the superintendent for the progress that was made. But when we look at District 6 specifically, it is a very diverse school district. We have some of the lowest performing schools in the state, and we have some of the highest performing schools in the state. And so I think it is really, really important to look at addressing disparities through an equity lens and looking at our students being taught the foundational skills in elementary school. Are we ensuring that we're starting out with the foundational skills, with, to earlier point being made around early literacy in K through 2, and then building upon that? I think that also looking at where are there heavily resourced schools currently, and then where could we spread the love or share the love? Parents have said to me that they feel like just in one district that some schools are heavier resourced, and then other schools don't have as many resources. And so I think it's an opportunity to really look at the district as a whole, all of Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, but then by district, looking at where are the resources, what do the students need in each of those schools, and then what are the resources that we could put in the schools to really support the teachers, the educators, and the staff to provide resources, to provide services, to support those students and families where teachers, counselors, et cetera, may not have the capacity to provide certain things. So I think it's looking at everything through an equity lens. Where are the needs, what's working and what's not working, and then making adjustments accordingly.
I'd like to add something real quick. 30 seconds, not even 30 seconds.
You got to answer the question the first time, right?
I did.
So we don't do back and forth. We don't do debate. Now I know you want to.
No, I just want to give information on District 1. The same information that she's getting.
Yep.
Remember,
In all fairness, you didn't actually get an answer to your question when you said, "Can I add something?" The answer was no.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that's
You
fine.
just got to stick to the format. It's not
That's fine.
fair.
No, that's
It's
fine.
not fair to let people add.
We'll be here all day. We have questions from Nathalie, Ms. Darnell, Rocky McGregor, Jasmine, and myself.
I'm Natalie. Your time is over here.
Ms. Nathalie, your mic.
It's on.
Yeah, we'll put it closer to you.
Put it closer to my mouth. Thank you. I think I know that by now. And just so you know, but Mr. Griffin is in the audience now. You were referring to him, he is here. My question is, I'll stop. What do you think the top 2 priorities are for a successful student?
I'll go. 2 things. 1, having a certified teacher in their classroom, a certified, qualified teacher. We know that our student data cannot move without a qualified teacher. It doesn't matter how much AI, it doesn't matter how much computers, it doesn't matter how much technology you use. Nothing beats a qualified teacher in the classroom, so that's number 1. The other thing is that giving the students the opportunity to thrive and experience and live their education. See themselves in their educators, see themselves in the world and what they could possibly be. And I think those 2 things are interconnected, because if you have a well-qualified teacher in the classroom, they're going to connect their students' learnings to every day. And so those 2 things will do amazing things for our schools. Now remember, CMS last year had a 99% fill rate. We are so close to that this year. We are at about 98% right now at the last numbers that we got, which were a couple weeks ago. So I'm excited to see when we hit those numbers, but that is our goal, is to get a qualified teacher in every classroom, because everything bases off of that. So once that happens, then our students will just absolutely thrive, as we've seen this year, where we had a 99% fill rate and our students have thrived.
So, my son was born in 2017, and I was reading books to him, and as I was reading to him, I noticed the books that I was reading were either Black history related or sports related. And I thought, that's just what we bought. And then I did some research and found that less than 10% of children's books feature people of color, less than 3% feature Black boys as the leading protagonists. And so then how many of those books are really everyday stories versus Martin Luther King or Michael Jordan? And so I have written 3 children's books: Black Boy Joy Christmas Countdown, and Black Boy Joy Promoted to Big Brother. I'm working on my 4th book, Black Boy Joy Has Big Feelings, because I know the importance of literacy. I know the importance of representation, and I believe that it's the biggest indicator, and research shows that, is literacy and reading for our students. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I will kind of double down on is being ready to learn and family engagement. And so how do we make sure that we, again, are partnering with our families and building that relationship, so that when students come to school, they have what they need and they're ready to learn, so that when they get there with that certified teacher, they're ready to go. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, to pick up some of the things that you said before, they're right on. The other part is that I mentioned at the very beginning, is that the child has to be ready to learn, and they have to feel safe in the environment they're in, and they ought to have also need a motivation. And what part of that motivation is that you feel that you belong. And that's having, like you were saying, about the type of teachers that you have. I think it's a very important thing. And having people show them things that they could do outside of the, let's say, necessarily in the classroom. Because I was a teacher, I had an opportunity to be able to take children flying. I was able to have a course in aviation, and actually was able to take my students up flying in an airplane. It was all on my own nickel, but still, that was something that they really looked for. And not only that, but it was an opportunity to bring in all the different elements of math, of physics, English, etc., all across the whole thing, because it was an application of all that learning. And that was one of the things that I think students grasp at, because, hey, this is something I can touch, I can feel, and I can do something rather than looking at a book or at a computer. Thank you.
So I was telling Melissa and Anna earlier before this started that it's a great thing to be running for school board, when I think that although we're opponents, we can agree on more than we disagree on. We might disagree on the approach to it, but I think overall we agree in common sense principles. So I say that to say that I agree with each and everything that they've said to this point, so I don't have much to add other than that I think it does start in the home. I think parents need to be engaged in their child's learning, and then I do agree that certified teachers make a difference. So that's really all I have to add, because everything else was Ms. Cover?
All right, and I'll just add similar, that I believe that highly qualified and certified educators, teachers are the key to ensuring that students have what they need in the classroom to be supported. I also believe in making sure, like I've mentioned, that parents are a part of their students' education, but then also bringing the community into the schools. So public-private partnerships, relationships and partnerships with other local municipality, local government, to make sure that our schools are heavily resourced, making sure that students have access to opportunity and exposure so that they know what they're working toward at a very young age.
All right, now we have Ms. Donnell, Mr. Rocky McGregor, and then Jasmine has a question from you too. And then Jasmine has a question for herself.
Good morning. My name is Darnell Ivory. I'm a retired educator from CMS. My question is, what do you see as the 3 strengths of our school district, and what are its most significant challenges?
For everyone.
Is that for everyone, Ms. Donnell?
Sure. If those who want to answer.
Those who want to answer.
All right, I'll kick us off. So thank you for that question. As a parent in CMS, I think the strength is you can tell the strides that CMS is trying to make with communication. We are getting texts and emails and phone calls, and there is a concerted effort to try to make sure that parents know what's happening and what they need to do proactively, so I see that. The second thing I will say is I see the opportunities on the CMS Foundation Board right now, which is the official philanthropic arm for CMS. And so part of what we do is provide grants for teachers to do innovation in the classroom. I'm seeing that with my own child. You know, the opportunities for teachers to be creative and how they kind of execute on the curriculum. And the third thing I would say is I have appreciated Dr. Hill's leadership, the way in which she's taken accountability for things that hasn't necessarily gone right, and the ways in which she communicates directly to the community. So those would be the 3 things that I would say are strengths. Some of the opportunities, I think we've kind of highlighted and talked through those things a little bit here, so I won't kind of double down on those.
So 3 things that we have that are very positive for us, and I will continue to say that our board has changed things around, and I've said it multiple times today, our board has made changes and expectations that have turned around to historic gains. The second thing, and I've mentioned this before as well, is Dr. Hill's leadership. She brought structure, she brought planning to our system that had been in turmoil for multiple years. You know, remember I said I was a 10-year teacher. I went through 6 superintendents. And so just in my time in the classrooms, let alone times before that and my students and stuff. So to have a superintendent for the last 3 years that has really put forth the effort to clean up the back end so that the front end looks a lot more organized and structured. The third thing that we have is we are truly building communication. Not saying we can't go any farther, but we are truly building it. The board had made a very clear statement that we wanted our own communication to line up with CMS, and that's something we have done, so that you're now seeing more communication coming from the board itself, and not just CMS, but we're working in tandem. And so that is something. Things that we need to improve on is teacher retention. You know, our numbers are still high, not as high as they were, but they're getting better, but we still need to work on that. The other thing is obviously still closing the achievement gaps. We have a long way to go. We are really proud of where we are, but we've celebrated, and now it's time to get back to work. And so I'm really proud of the structures and the platforms Dr. Hill has put in for that. And then the third thing, you know, our Family Academy, reaching out to families that way, and the really thoughtful process that she has put in to put those structures in so that we can get the results that we need.
So I'll go. I love that question because you started with what are the 3 strengths, and I think oftentimes in political platforms that there's a tendency to tear down rather than building up. And so I love your question. And I would say The three strengths are stability. I think that CMS and the current school board have worked really, really hard to provide a stable environment. Leadership, as has been mentioned, Dr. Hill's leadership is definitely a strength. And I would also say another strength is the current relationship and trust and credibility that has been built back with the private sector and local government. So the relationship between the school board, the county commissioners, and with the private sector. I think that we know that a thriving community is only as strong as its public school system. And so in order to have a thriving community, we need to have a thriving school system. And an opportunity, which has already been mentioned, is definitely closing achievement gaps. I'm really proud of the progress that has been made, but we do need to get closer to closing the achievement gaps.
Oh, here we go. It's now I got it working. The strengths that I agree with is that the superintendent, I think, having a steady superintendent, as Melissa had mentioned, of having someone changing all the time, that is definitely having a leadership consistency on that. The other thing is that the building budget that we went through the capital plan, I think it's great because up in District 1, we're starting to build schools. I mean, some newer schools, and even though, from my perspective, that the District 1 is pumping a lot of money into the county, that sometimes we don't feel like we're getting our share, but now I think that building fund is, the capital fund is doing some of that. The other thing is, I think from a strength is that the state legislature has given a lot of good rules and things into the school system. I think that kind of steadies down and reduces some of the conflicts or dilemmas that I think that the school system could be facing. Now, one of the things I think we also need is to somehow improve, I guess, the teacher supplement, to increase that teacher supplement. And one of the things, my personal opinion is that there's a lot of money going into the bureaucracy of the school system. If you look at the level of student growth of students, it's pretty well flat. The number of teachers is pretty well flat. But the growth in the bureaucracy within the school district is great and high. And that's where I think a lot of that money could be thrown in to be able to supplement higher teacher pay and to reduce class sizes. Thank you.
I'll just add one thing. As Anna alluded to, in politics, you typically want to focus on the negative. But what I think the board has identified under Dr. Hill's leadership is the academic performance that we were lagging behind the state average in many categories, and they've attacked it head on. And we're seeing incremental improvement, but identifying that as a weakness, I think, turns it into a strength for the board because they know where they're weak and they're working to improve it.
All right, we have Rocky McGregor.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to first thank everybody for being here. Really appreciate it. My question is for Melissa Easley. You actually questioned a contract, and that contract was that of Sid Kimmel, that my wife owns that company. Since then, the data has come out to show that she has had 10 out of 12 of the schools, and again, it was an amendment, 10 out of the 12 of those schools exceeded growth.
You have to ask your question. You're 30 seconds.
Yes, ma'am. And 8 of those schools actually improved the letter grades. Have you come back to look and see whether or not that data has happened? And what are your thoughts about the impact that it's made on our worst middle schools?
So,
there? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So first I want to start out by saying I had absolutely no problem with the tutoring company. What I had the problem is that we don't know where some of our funding is coming. And $500,000 is a lot of money. And I wasn't sure that that was worth it at that time, when next year, we don't know what we're getting. Remember, 100% of our budget comes from other entities. And so that supplement that everyone's touting for is graciously provided by our county commission. So when we asked, and that's actually why I voted against the budget, to ask for more. So my issue is, I had no problem with the tutoring company. I think congratulations. Congratulations. I also don't think that it was done exceptionally to any of our other schools that met or exceeded growth. Instead, that some of our other schools that were low performing had higher growth numbers. So I'm not against the contract. I was not against the contract ever. I think tutoring is an incredible opportunity. I think there are other tutoring contracts that we do need to look at and make sure that our steward dollars are being used effectively to as many students as possible. All I wanted to do was hold off on meeting.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hold off on meeting a $500,000 contract until we knew where funding was coming. The state is trying to defund us. The federal government is trying to defund us. And $500 million is a lot of money that could be used somewhere else to affect more than 10 schools, more than 12 schools. We have more than 12 middle schools in CMS, and some of those middle schools need extra support. So I was just not ready for that contract right now. I wanted more detail on where the funding was coming. Thank you for asking that question.
No, and just to clarify, it wasn't 500,000.
The total was.
Whoa. Now, we do not go back and forth. We do not go back and forth.
My apologies. I said the wrong
You
word.
can leave comments on the Instagram or the YouTube.
I said the wrong word. You corrected my word. Thank you.
No, yes, I get it. The rules are the rules. So now we have.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you for clarifying. We got a little spicy. Had to bring it back home. We have a question from Jasmine. Via YouTube.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do the online question first. This actually came from a viewer from the Democratic Party. And this is actually specifically to Ms. Charlita. The Democratic Party asked you to withdraw from the race so that Melissa will have a clear pathway and the votes won't be split. The question to you is, why did you continue to run?
There you
go. Okay. Thank you for that question. Several people have asked me to withdraw from the race, and we know that it's a democracy, and that it is up to the people to decide who they want for representation. And so I stood firm in continuing to run the race, and to not allow the goalpost to be moved for people to say whether or not they believe I'm qualified or whether or not they believe it's my turn. I know that I'm the best candidate to represent District 1. I have shared my qualifications here on why I'm staying in the race. I think at the time where we are with public education, we are in a crisis. And I would make these times very similar to the pandemic, where I was president of the Junior League of Charlotte in 2020 and led that organization through an anti-racism journey, membership model redefinition, and a fund development strategy. And with that, where we are right now, where we have so many people that feel uncertain, not just about education, but with life. And you need a leader
That understands that, and that also, what else?
That's great.
I believe District 1 needs a leader that not understands that, but is solutions oriented and can help us navigate through this crisis while bringing the community together. So I am standing firm. I will be in this race to the end, and no one except for the voters will be able to decide who represents District 1. Thank you.
Okay, so this is my question. And I think for the most part, all of you all can answer, but I'm particularly curious from my candidate at the end. You had mentioned, first of all, our literacy rate is low, comprehension is low. I'm curious, as somebody, not a recent grad, but I'm dealing with student loans, right? I'm curious to you all, what does workplace readiness look like, and why isn't there more of an emphasis on trade and things that don't cost money after school?
I love that question. And so when I say that students need to be prepared for life after graduation, I mean all things life after graduation. I mean college, I mean straight to the workforce and career, and I also mean military. And so I'll share a little bit about what I currently, or what I do and what some things that we've done in partnership with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, and what I think could be strengthened. And so providing access and exposure to work-based learning opportunities and different careers and occupations should start as early as elementary school. So foundational skills are extremely important, and then layering on top of foundational skills, early literacy, work-based learning opportunities so that students can see what they may be interested in, what are their skills and their strengths. And then in middle school, providing more work-based learning. So workplace tours, classroom speakers, and also providing to students what is the pathway to participating in career and college promise, early college, middle college, dual enrollment. Oftentimes I hear from parents, I would say I've heard this for the last 14, 15 years. I hear from parents and students, they didn't know how important Math 1 was so that their student could participate in dual enrollment, career and college promise, early college, middle college, so that students can be in college courses while they're in high school, and to your point, graduate high school with a high school diploma and an associate's degree. We've done an incredible job over the last couple of years of bringing businesses back into the schools, but that's an opportunity to strengthen as well.
I'm going to pick up on that question because it's very important to have the hands-on. I mentioned about the aviation a little bit earlier, but when I was teaching at Marie G. Davis, and this is when it was the Military Global Leadership Academy, and I was teaching Algebra 1, and there was a student who I had trouble with most of the time that I was there. But one of the things that struck me was that we were building a little kind of a lean-to thing where we put tools in. And we, the CTE teacher, I said, hey, let's get Charlie, I can't remember what his name was, to help you with this. And this child who had all this, disruption that he was in the classroom, but once he had his hands on, starting to cut wood and to hammer and etc., it was in his element. He was using all the things that I was teaching him in algebra, in other words, about using fractions and where to cut and angles, etc. See, well, he was applying to that with hands-on things. So just picking up on speaking right there, that is something that we really need. And there's a lot of people who were jump for this idea to go into a trade type of thing. But again, they have to have, like you said, the Math 1, they have to have the literacy and etc. But if you start allowing them to be able to touch a little bit of that as the younger grades, I think is going to give these children a lot better, more motivation because they want to belong to that. Thank you.
All right, y'all, it's 9:30, so we have to trim it down. Questions, actually continue 30 seconds, but response is 1 minute. All right, we have Gary.
All right, I think this one.
I'm sorry. Point of clarification to the last question that Jasmine asked for an online user. That was the individual, not the Democratic Party, asking that question.
Thank you for the preface. All right, I think Ms. London alluded to it a little earlier, started going down that lane. As a CMS alum, I came up in a school system that was very equitable. No matter what school you attended, you received a great education. When you got to that next level in college, it truly showed. In today's CMS, we have a very inequitable system. I believe Charlita can attest. We attended a school that was superb, probably 50-50. Now the school is 99.9% black, very under-resourced. This trickles down. Now the schools are neighborhood-based. What ideas or strategies do you have to step to the table and recreate that experience where no matter where you lived in this county, you received an education that was on par, and most importantly, the social aspect of it? How do you recreate the social aspect where kids who lived in underprivileged areas were able to commingle with kids who lived in more privileged areas, and you got that meeting?
Let me take that shot. Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to say is, and saying that everybody has heard, it takes a village, right? Community school models are that village, and what we want to do is bring the community in there to be part of it, to own that school, right? And those business partnerships that Ms. London talked about, the community resources that Ms. Hatch talked about, those are all things that we can bring to CMS to get a well-rounded. Remember, one of our guardrails is we have to, superintendent has to do the whole child, not just part of it, right? That's part of the whole child. And so continuing to bring these partnerships, continuing to work with the community to help support is really where we're going. And Ms. London's business, or not business, it's a nonprofit, right? Has been a huge help in that, and I want to continue to grow that because it really does take a village. It's going to take all of us to improve all of our public schools.
I was also going to say community engagement and bringing resources partners back into the school. Well, they're already in the schools, but strengthening relationships with the community, of course, with the private sector, public-private partnerships. I think it's addressing the whole child means making sure that there are clear and clearly articulated pathways, making sure that every student and family understands. I like to say a pathway is like a GPS. And so no matter what that student's desire, skills, interests, achievements may be, making sure that they understand how to utilize the GPS that's created for them to be able to navigate that pathway. And someone once said to me that we need to lift the floor and the ceiling at the same time. And so I think that is, it's really important to focus on every single student in our school system, making sure that they have access to the resources, access to the partnerships that can help them on their GPS to get to where they need to be.
I think this is also a really good use case for how we reimagine education in these kind of modern times and the role of artificial intelligence to do that. We know that there's a digital divide. We know that there's a disparities in almost every topic that we can talk about. So what can we do to use artificial intelligence to not widen that gap, but to help close it? How can we make sure that we're starting to predict based off the growth in areas, what the demographic and socioeconomic makeup might be, and what interventions could we start to put in place there? How can we use data and test scores and to put that into our models to understand where we might need additional resources, what types of teachers we may need to look at. The other thing I would offer is with PTAs. Not all of them are created equally. And so you have some PTAs and PTOs that go out proactively and solicit businesses or athletic booster clubs that do that. What is our role to do that from a district level, to go out and to start to bring those businesses in to help to support the schools and the children overall?
Thank you for the question about the neighborhood schools. I think that's a very important thing because it keeps the community together. I mean, even in sports, was if you're getting a chance to play football or basketball or something like that after school, you want to be in your neighborhood. To me, that is a very important thing, and where we ought to have our resources going, focusing in there and giving and bringing more of an opportunity of, just like I mentioned, hands-on type of opportunities for our children. And I think that's going to spur the people to want to engage more with that, because they say, oh, look, Johnny has a chance to do this, or has a chance to do something with his hands or voice or whatever. Thank you.
All right, we have Robert.
Good morning. My question is for you, Ms. Anna. You spoke earlier about having A-level schools and F-level schools in your area. And so my question is this: is there a demographic difference between the F and the A? And then what do the teachers look like demographically versus in the sense of, do we have children that look like the teachers? And what are you going to make a difference? Or is it going to just stay an F and an A?
That's a great question. And so the answer is yes, there are demographic differences. There are also geographic differences in the location of where those schools are. And so I think it goes back to really looking at where are the resources, what schools are currently heavily resourced, and looking at what do those students and their families actually need, and making sure that we do move things around so that those schools, those students, those families have the resources that they need in order to be better engaged, more engaged. And so one of the schools, I've actually talked to a lot of the parents at that specific school, and they said that things have gotten a lot better over the last couple of years, and they feel like progress is being made, and they are very thankful for the way that the current school board and Dr. Hill's leadership has been supporting that school. But they need additional resources. They need better ways to engage with those specific families and those specific students. So I would definitely look at making sure that those students have access to better resources that align with their specific needs.
I would piggyback off of that. It shouldn't matter what zip code a student lives in. They should have equal access to education. And if we are allocating more resources to a school that might be quote unquote in a better zip code, we should look at transferring those resources to the other zip codes, the other schools, to make sure that every student, regardless of socioeconomic status, receives the same level of education as every other student.
So this is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's equity over equality, right? Equality doesn't mean that everybody has the same, right? Equity is not everything the same, that's equality. And so what I wanted to say before was that a lot of people think that District 1 has all high income schools, and that's actually not true. We have several low income schools that are Title I schools, including the school that my children go to. And so, or my child goes to now. And so, yes, those resources need to be looked at, but we also need to look at, remember, the school board sets the what, right? So we said that no matter what the superintendent does to meet our goals, they cannot forsake equity over equality. And so that is something that we are making sure that is being done to give the extra resources to those that need. Remember, there is no such thing as a failing school. It's a school that needs more additional resources. And so that's what we want to do as the board, is making sure that our resources are being given to our lowest performing schools to bring them up. I love that line, Ms. London. We need to raise the ceiling and the floor at the same time. So thank you for saying that. Right? Because that was you, right? Okay.
The ceiling is the roof. No. So I have a question. Again, we, as a former subpar student at CMS, I wanted to know, like, what programmatic approaches, systemic approaches we can have to kind of soften the landing for underperforming students. As much as I would enjoy or appreciate the idea of graduating classes graduating at 100%, well, 3.5 and above, that's not the reality. So how can we make sure that the kids who just might not have it, get it together or put it together during this portion of life won't feel defeated by the time he's 17, trying to figure out what the next steps are?
Yes, so I love that question, because I do think we need to make sure that we meet every single student where they are and challenge them in the way that is appropriate for that student to be challenged. I'll share an example of a partnership that I am extremely proud of, and that is with the city of Charlotte. So Marcus Jones made a commitment a year and a half ago to hire students directly out of CMS into positions at the city that required only a high school diploma. And that was because some students are not going directly into higher education. And so he made the commitment, and the first year they hired 17 students, making $45,000 a year. The second year they hired 27 students, making $46,000 a year because their minimum wage increased. And so I think that is an example of an opportunity for students who may not be going directly into higher education, but higher education can be on their path later or not. But they entered into a livable wage job.
To answer your question, to soften the landing, not every student is going to go to college. Not every student is going to have a tremendous GPA, but every student has something that they do excel in. And if we can find out what they excel in and we can help train them for that, you don't need a 3.5 GPA to be a mechanic. You might be good with your hands, but you might not be good with books. So how do we explore what they're good at, find out what they're good at, and help them get into a trade sooner so that when they do graduate, college isn't on their horizon, but they can start out as a mechanic, and mechanics make great money. So it's not about education. Higher education always. You just need to find out what they're good at.
Yeah, and if I have to pick up on that, is that you're right on the discussions about this, but I know to get it, for instance, to get to graduate, oftentimes you need like to have three or four math courses you have to have passed, or you have to have so many courses in English and stuff to get your degree. So somewhere along the line, I think they need to be able to work with the legislature to find if there's a way to modify a little bit of that, of allowing the different career paths. In other words, college, you may have these different type things. I know there's a little bit of finite differences in the state requirements of those, but still, I think some of the ones to be able to go into the trades, it should be a little bit more easier to get into the trades rather than the way it's the legislature has it today. Thank you.
So I've navigated through CMS, but my brother navigated alongside me as well. And he was held back in the 4th and 6th grade. And what I do know is that he was not at the right schools. But we didn't have that at that time. We didn't have the information to know how to figure out different schools. And to be quite honest, my parents thought, wherever the most white people are, that's where my black son needs to go. He ended up leaving CMS and going to a junior college. And that is where he found his way and ended up going to play basketball at High Point University and played overseas. I want that for students within CMS. And I love that there is a goal that says every student should be enrolled, enlisted, or employed. I'm a big proponent and have been a supporter of the CTE program, the Careers in Technical Education. I just presented at the North Carolina CTE conference on how to help parents understand the benefits of CTE, knowing that, a lot of us are conditioned that if you don't go to college, maybe you're not a success. So CTE is where I champion and believe students find their path.
Before we go on, you have to clarify acronyms. I'm thinking about concessions.
Career and Technical Education.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to keep with that theme because I really love that, moving the floor and the ceiling at the same time. So I'm going to go with that theme. Thank you, Ms. London. There are two ways we can do this. Yes, CMS has done a great job of partnering with programs for our Career and Technical Education, CTE, as well as some of our other businesses. The What's Your E, we do it like a draft. It's so cool. We rented out Bojangles, or was it Bojangles last time, or Hornet Stadium, something like that, to celebrate, just like the draft, right? So to get kids excited. So that's one way that Dr. Hill is working. To help solve, the other thing is that making sure our students are being looked at and their data and seeing if they're struggling, helping to make sure I get our master teachers in there to help them. The other aspect is to show that higher education is not the only way to go, and there are other options like everybody else has said here. So, but the other aspect of it is advocating for the legislature to change how they spend the grades. Remember, 80% of those grades are based on one test that they take for 4 hours. So advocating for the change in the way the scores are and helping students on the back end will help that.
All right, we have questions from Mr. Ken Kuntz, and Ms. Commissioner Arthur Griffin will close us out.
It's been said that those who don't know the history are destined to repeat it. In 1955, they outlawed separate but equal. In 1970, Charlotte was the first court-ordered busing to desegregate schools to enforce or to bring about equity. After 1990, that went away, and we are now where we are. So my question to you is, to what extent, especially in District 1, you reference how so many of your schools are above the levels, and you have a few that are below the level, Title I schools. My question is, because separate but equal does not work, has not worked, busing worked for a while and then went away, and now we're back repeating separate but equal. How many of those underperforming schools in your district have been able to experience additional resources because they were, and while other schools were excelling because of who they were? And then do you see any kind of disparity in what you've demonstrated and where those resources go?
So let me make sure I hear your question correctly. We've got District 1, how are those resources being distributed to make sure that all of our schools are getting equal? And that separate but equal has counterturned, and absolutely it has. I mean, first I'm gonna agree with you. We've had so many changes over the years, school board changing boundaries, schools being built, new homes being built, all of those things. District 1, I think the biggest thing we need to look at are our boundaries in District 1. And I think that attributes to what you are saying, because we have, you know, the boundaries have not been looked at and changed in District 1 for 11 years, since Grand Oak opened. And there is some history behind Grand Oak where the plan was to put a magnet program in there. Well, they never did. And so now Grand Oak has less amount of students going to it, and they've got more parents' involvement, right? So it's twofold. So the schools that are low, that don't have a lot of parent involvement, that is one area. So we need to get more parents engaged in those schools, absolutely. But also, we need to make sure that there are equitable distributions across District 1. We right now have families that are passing Huntersville Elementary and zoned for Torrance Creek. That's not fair. That's not okay, and that's not the way it should be. And I'm not saying it was done on purpose, because it wasn't. All these, you know, Huntersville was the fastest growing zip code. So that's something staying on the board is what I want to look to, and make sure that our schools are all equity driven, as opposed to, you know, necessarily that's separate but equal.
All right, we have Commissioner Griffin.
First of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for putting yourself up for public scrutiny and running the school board. It's one of the toughest jobs in America. Two questions. One, employed, enlisted, and enrolled. As a school board member, how would you report out to the public? How many of your graduates are employed, enrolled, and enlisted? Second question, would you be willing to speak to the Board of Governors for the UNC system to get a readout on how many CMS students are completing 4 years on time? All of that data is in the database. Thank you.
So I'll start with I think a quick answer. So I would say reporting out on the employed, enlisted, or enrolled, sharing it with the community publicly, maybe in a dashboard. I know that this is a new initiative for CMS, and so I think it is important to track, but then also share that publicly with the community through a dashboard. And then your second question, yes.
To answer your first question, I attended Charlotte School of Law, and when we were an up-and-coming law school that no longer exists, unfortunately, but we tracked all of that data for our graduates. So if you were JD hired, meaning you didn't have a law license, or you were past the bar and now you're working, or you were underemployed given your education, our school tracked all of that data and put it out on our website so that new students could see that and they were attracted to the school. So I absolutely think that's something that we should do. And then yes, to your second question.
Yes, I think the idea of having transparency is very important, because I think that actually engages the public greater by being open, and you know the sunlight laws or whatever. But having that engagement, I think, is it actually strengthens everyone, because they have more faith in what's going on with the schools. Because there's a lot of people who say they don't trust what's going on because they don't have that transparency. So yes, thank you.
So I think that we should be tracking every student, and every student should have a plan. And so then we should be capturing that data and reporting out by class. I also think the point around reporting out to the UNC system, I could see some longitudinal studies, particularly with our kind of counterparts within the North Carolina college system. We are tracking our students. I could see a wonderful research project for UNC students to actually follow what's happening to our students when they leave, not just when they complete college, but then once they leave college, where do they go, so that we have those success stories to report back on, or we have the opportunity to say, you know, they actually were not ready in these areas, so that we can strengthen our curriculum. So I would, one, the tracking and being able to report out on that data, but then also having some concerted longitudinal studies would allow us to be able to go report back to the Board of Governors.
So like several mentioned, this is a new initiative for the board, but I do want to point out, this is goal 4. Remember, we went out and got 60,000 pieces of data from the community of what they wanted to see as someone who graduated CMS. And one of the biggest things that we heard from all across the county was post-CMS readiness, right? So that's why Dr. Hill launched enlisted, enrolled, or employed. That's where that started. We are getting the data, we are tracking. That is one of our 4 goals, and we're learning what that is. And so that goal is going to continue to transform until we find out exactly what that is. So if Dr. Hill has reached out to our UNCC, I think that's a fantastic idea. That is her prerogative. Remember, we set the what, the superintendent sets the how. So we've set the what, and we've said we want to increase our post-secondary or our after-school readiness and what we are doing. And now the superintendent sets that how. And if that how is reaching out, then I am all for it. She's doing an amazing job in this area, and so is our team with the data. And I'm really excited to see what comes out of that.
All right, we're going to extend a little grace to an elected official for the last question, board member, Ms. Stephanie Sneed. Board Chair, Ms. Stephanie Sneed, please.
Good morning, Tuesday Morning Forum. I just have, it's not really a question, it's a comment. It is, we gotta change our thinking and our mindset. I just can't sit here with it. Title I or mostly minority does not mean low performing. It does not mean failing. But I'll see y'all next week and talk more about that.
Boy, and mixtape coming soon. Just drop the hotline. And, all right, please, panel, 30 seconds with closing remarks. Let's start with Ms. London.
Well, thank you for the opportunity this morning to share more, to answer questions. And like I said in the beginning, I bring both lived experience as well as professional experience. And I believe that I bring the skills to this that are needed to serve in this seat. I bring governance experience, leadership experience, and experience in education, as well as crisis intervention and behavioral health, workforce development. The goal is that we make sure our students are prepared for life after graduation, building back trust, making sure that our parents are partners in our students' education, and fully funding public schools and increasing teacher and staff pay. I would appreciate your support.
I just want to say thank you for having us here today. This has been a great opportunity. I've really enjoyed the experience. As I stated earlier, I'm a husband, a father, and a soon-to-be foster parent. I have a vested interest in our students and their outcomes. And I look forward to engaging with the voters and the constituents of District 6 to learn more about how we can improve our schools. And thank you for your support.
Thank you again. My name is Bill Fountain. A retired school teacher also in military and in the business world. I think I have the leadership and the teamwork and the classroom experience to be an effective change agent. One of the things I wanted just to close with is that I think is very important is the idea of having our students ready to learn. And part of that ready to learn is being that they have the feeling of belonging, of feeling safe in the classroom, and the respect. And in order to really meet those type of goals, I think we need to go back into focusing on better behavior and virtues and character formation. Every child deserves to reach their potential. Thank you.
All right, Ecclesiastes 3 says, there is a time for everything and a season for everything under the sun. And this is our time, and this is our season. There is so much going on in our city, in our community, and in our country. And we cannot afford to continue to do what we are doing. We see the game that's being played. We hear coded language. We hear dog whistle language happening right now. And we need to make sure that we wake up and pay attention to what is happening under the sun. So I invite you to vote Charlita for Charlotte for District 1.
Since I didn't stand up last time, I'll stand up this time. Thank you for this opportunity for me to talk. I've been honored to be on the CMS school board for the last 3 years. My results speak for themselves. I have protected teacher safety. I have helped strengthen school safety. I've helped fight for those buildings to be built in North Beck and to get new schools. You know, we've got 3 schools there that are over 100 years old, or running up on 100 years old. They needed to be replaced, and so I fought for that. I fought for expanded opportunities for our students and for our teachers, and you know what, visibility matters. I am a teacher, I'm an educator, and having teachers and educators seeing me on the board has been a huge thing. So I encourage you to keep me on the board so that I continue my work. Thank you. And again, once again, I encourage everyone to go to my website, Easily for CMS, and sign up for my newsletter. You do not have to be in District 1 to read my newsletter, so I encourage you all to do that. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please round of applause for the candidates for District 1 and 6 for Charlotte Mecklenburg School. Please, all elected officials, please stand before we go into announcement. We would like to recognize you. Thank you for your tireless work and service. It's no easy job. With that said, we'll see you next week. Districts 2, 4, and 5. Dr. Thomas, play us out.